Rendering, the long process in art from rough to polish. In 5 simple steps. I'll be showing my rendering process from this to this. For this art piece, I use IbisPaint and use the free version, no premium nor other programs. The following steps are composition, lighting, rendering, coloring filters, and texture. Disclaimer, not a pro artist, preference based, no need to follow all steps. Pause. Are you passionate about art and feel lonely? Want to share your work, get feedback, and connect with others? Join my Discord art server, linked in the description down below. Composition. As you can see in the sketch, I broke it down in 3 simple shapes: circle, square, triangle. The main shape is triangle in this composition as it to make it more eye-catching. For line art, I keep it simple. No clean, smooth strokes needed, since I render on top of the line art. When drawing the line art, I always break it down into shapes to simplify. Like for the clothing wrinkles, I use triangles. Add a new layer below and use a gray for the base that outlines the silhouette. Click the special tool, then click the tools options. After, click the lasso fill tool. Now fill in the silhouette. I prefer using this tool since it's easier for me to place the colors, rather than using the bucket tool. Now add a new layer above and set it to clip and mask, the down arrow below. Now select your color and place it down using the lasso fill tool again. When selecting your color, I tend to go down in the middle between saturation and desaturation. This gives more color options when rendering. Now when choosing the color white, I tend not to go pure white. Instead, I go for a light bluish gray. Now when choosing the color black, I don't usually go for pure black. I go for a dark bluish gray. Now merge all the layers down except the line art. Add a new layer above the line art and set it to clip and mask. And go for a dark saturated color. And then fill the whole layer with the color. This helps make the art piece look not too harsh. Before, after. Before we get on to lighting and rendering, I have to understand tonal value. What is tonal value? It just means how dark or light a color or a shade is. For instance, here's an example of no sense of tonal value. And with tonal value, it helps with making the drawing looks more 3D. Tonal value depends on the chromaticity. Let's take these 2 colors for example. Tonal value just helps with contrast to create a 3D shape of shadows and highlights. It is helpful to examine the relationship between the light source and the shadow of an object. It's important to know this when choosing the right colors. If unsure how to check, add a new layer above, fill the layer with the color white, then change the blending mode to color. Let's start by adding the lighting. Add a new layer above and set it to clip and mask. Fill in the layer with the color, and change the blending mode to multiply. Adjust to liking. Now the light source. Add a new layer above and set it to clip and mask. Since I picked blue for the shadows, I picked the yellow for the light source because I'm going for a complementary color light source. Change the blending mode to add. Now you're going to add your light source. In this case, my light source would be coming from above. There's many types of light sources, so choose the best one for your art piece. Since light source changes the mood of an art piece based on how dramatic it is. Now merge down the shadow and the light source. Duplicate the layer. Now adjust to liking. Add a new layer above, set it to multiply and clip and mask. Now take your shadow color and then adding darker shadows. Merge down, add a new layer above and set it to clip and mask. Choose a light vibrant color and place it on the face. Change the blending mode to overlayer. Adjust to liking. Now we're gonna add the ambient light. It's a light that bounces onto the shadow. Add a new layer above and set it to clip and mask. Choose a desaturated blue, brush it onto the shadow, then color pick where the color fades. Undo and we'll use the color that we color picked. Repeat this step for every color. Merge down and now we have 1 layer. When choosing the color for the light source, you could use complementary, triadic, analogous, and etc. These color theory method can help make the art piece more interesting to look at. 1. Shadow and light source. 2. Rim light, which is the saturated color between the shadows. 3. Blend it by doing linear shading, or smooth blend it by cell shading using airbrush. 4. Adding texture using saturated colors. Now we start adding the midtones, the blending. I personally render on the same layer, since this is the blending part of the rendering stage. This step is pretty explanatory as we place the basic of shadows and light source. Now we just blend them. When blending, I color pick the colors around for a pleasing look. But be aware that different material blends differently. This leans towards hair, face, and even clothing materials. If unsure how to blend them, search it on Pinterest as it has many resources you can use such as clothing wrinkles, folds, and materials. Blending around the outline area. Adding blush around the skin. Use a light saturated outline on the light source parts. Use a dark saturated color to outline the eye. Use a dark saturated color to outline. Now we repeat these rendering steps on different material. 1. Blend. 2. Add details based on the material. 3. Add a reflected light and dark saturated outline. Now, after blending, I add highlights. This goes near the light source. I added a special highlight with the outline on the eye. Played around with the color of the outline. Added extra details and adjustments. I added a strong light source on top of the hair. Since the light source is coming from above, I added more hair strands using a light bright yellow, since I have a complementary light source. This color theory really helps make the art piece look more fun and pop more. The blue and the yellow really gives off a sunrise vibe, which really sets the mood for the art piece. After, I added a vibrant bounce light between the shadow and the light source to give contrast and saturation. Adding aspects of vibrant color gives more depth and contrast between the light source. Now I add extra details, such as defining, adding more shadows, and hatching. Adding additional details really helps make the art piece feel less empty. I try not to over detail the art as less is more, although it's just a preference. Adding more loose hair strands to show how flowy it is, since the hair looked kinda stiff. After, I outlined the hair more to emphasize the light source on the hair. After, I added a new layer above, set it to clipping mask, and changing the blending mode to soft light. Use a pinkish red to make the skin more saturated. Placing it down on the skin/blush. Merge down, and now we have one layer. Now that we finished the rendering, it's time to add the coloring filters. Duplicating the layer, change the color of the layer. I chose the blue since that is the color of my shadows. Now setting the layer to luminosity. Don't worry on how it looks right now. Adjust to liking. It should look dull and saturated. I duplicate the layer and set it to divide. Now adjust to liking. This helped make the colors more balanced and give a soft, vibrant look. After, you can make any changes using the hue filter. Now I duplicate the layer again and set it to soft light or overlayer if preferred. Adjust to liking. Then merge the layers. Now adjust the color layer on top of the original. I kept on duplicating and changing the blending modes in the color section. Duplicate the original layer, and now you can merge the coloring layer and the original layer. Here's the difference between with coloring and without. I add a new layer above and set to clipping mask, making the blending mode to overlayer, chose a dark saturated color, and place it on the shadows for more saturation. I repeat this up and do it for the blush instead, using the pinkish red. Now merge all the layers down. Now it's time for the effects. Duplicating the layer, effects, artistic, anime background. Now adjust and play around with the colors. And change the blending mode to any you prefer. I kept on duplicating the layer and played around with the blending modes. After adjusting, I merged the layer to one. Once I finished with adjusting the colors, I added a new layer above. I redefined the highlights and added more. In this art piece, I used pure white, but you can use any light saturated color for highlights. Merge down and add a new layer above and place it on the shadows for more saturation. Use a dark color and fill the layer with the color. Then set it to difference, exclusion. Now you can adjust using the hue filter. This changed the lighting and the mood of an art piece. Duplicating the original layer, then merge the coloring layer and the layer below, and change the blending mode again, optional. Now we can really spice up the drawing by adding more texture. Duplicate the layer, filter, pixelate, pixelate, crystallize. You can adjust the sizing to your liking, but I prefer the smallest size, 0%. Now set the blending mode in the color section. I merged the layer down and added a new layer above. And used a 5-line texture brush and place it on the shadows and the empty spaces. Merge down the layer, filter, artistic, then noise. Adjust to liking, clipping mask, adjust, change blending mode, then merge. Duplicate layer again, filter, artistic, then retro game, adjust to liking, change blending mode to your liking. Merge down, then duplicate, filter, artistic, chromatic aberration, zooming. Adjust to liking. Now you can use the eraser tool and use airbrush, 60%. Now I erase the inside, leaving the effect on the outside. This outlines the effect to target the face for the viewers. Now add a new layer above and use a dot or 5-line brush. Place it on any empty spaces. This makes the art piece look more fun and colorful, which remind me of the comic or manga style. Merge and add an overlay that can be found on Pinterest or Google, changing the blending mode in the lighting section. Adjust to liking. Add a new layer above the drawing and set it to clipping mask. Choose a light color and place it on the bottom fading. Just give a perspective of looking what's further. Before, after. That's all the steps from my rendering process. Here's a summary of the concepts in rendering. I hope you learned something from this tutorial, and see you next time, goobers. Bye!